Thank you, everyone, for giving up another evening to do the state's important business here. So we have before us House File 2001, and I'll move the House File 2001 to be referred to Ways and Means. Representative Cantrell, explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to bring this bill before you today. House File 2001 essentially makes existing statute as it pertains to workforce certificates of compliance. It brings this existing statute in line with in a manner that is more concise and I think clears up a little bit of the difficulty and kind of interpretation that's been expressed by the Office of Administration. So with me today is Mr. Butel. Did I get that right? Okay, good. And he is from the Department of Human Rights, and he'll go into a little bit of detail, not only about this bill and the changes that we are making, and I do want to underscore, too, that this isn't going to really change anything except make the existing language more concise, and he'll also be here to help clear up any consternation that may arise. So I appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Chair, and I'll turn the presentation over to Mr. Butel.
Mr. Butel, please be very, very thorough as we are waiting for an amendment to the amendment to appear in the room. So please be very thorough with your testimony. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I can be very, very, very thorough as we wait for this amendment. So my name is Scott Butel. I am the Public Policy Director for the Minnesota Department of Human Rights. Thank you for hearing this second agency bill of the day. We appreciate the committee's time. So basically what this bill does is it clarifies some language within the Workforce Certificate of Compliance statute, which is Minnesota Statute 363A36. This is an existing program that is administered by the Department of Human Rights. The Department of Human Rights and the Department of Administration work closely in this area on an ongoing basis with the Department of Administration's work that they conduct around procurement for the state. And Julie Byrel, who's the Legislative Director for Department of Administration, is here if there's any questions for them. And so in discussions with Department of Administration, we've identified this specific section as an area of potential ambiguity, and we've brought this bill forward to ensure that there is no ambiguity about the treatment of out-of-state based contractors versus Minnesota-based contractors and the fact that they have the same obligations. This bill is consistent with current agency practice for implementing this program and does not expand the scope of which contracts are covered under this program or make other substantive changes to the statute. We've worked closely with Department of Administration on language, and with the adoption of today's amendments, we have the language that provides clarity for all parties and is workable for Department of Human Rights and Department of Administration. Specifically, this proposal merges the first two paragraphs of this section, paragraph A and paragraph B, into one, and then updates a little bit of outdated language and renumbers the sections as required. We appreciate the committee moving this forward to allow for this technical clarification to be made. I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee has. Thank you so much.
Any comments to add at this time, Representative Cantrell?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair.
A little bit of patience here. I see an amendment in A19, or yeah, before you. Yeah. I'd like to move the amendment to A19. Everybody had a chance to look at it. We have an amendment to the amendment as well. So. Okay. What's your pleasure on the amendment to the amendment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The amendment to the amendment is adopted. The amendment itself, the A19. What's your pleasure on the amendment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we have the bill in shape that the author so desires. Representative Cantrell. Anything to add at this point?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for the opportunity to bring this bill before you, and we're here for questions.
Questions to the testifier or the author? Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Representative Cantrell said in his opening comments that this clears up language, and Mr. Chair, I'm still confused. Earlier today, we did House File 2000, and now we're doing 2001. And in 2000, Section 1, Subdivision 1, Scope of Application, we're just adding a half a sentence there, but in 2001, we're deleting the entire section. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm still missing something.
Can the author or the testifier please bring some clarity?
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Chair.
Butel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Fabian. I appreciate your question. And again, apologies for bringing two bills on the same section on the same day and not having this as tidy as we would like to. So for the House File 2000, we worked with the reviser and they wished to draft based on the existing statute, which has separate paragraphs A and B. And in those, they added the requirements around public officers or agencies subject to 16A.695, which is the GEO-bond statute.
Yep.
So they wish to add it to that. With House File 2001 that's before us now, that actually is to clarify paragraphs A and B in Minnesota Statute 363A36 because we had some issues of potential ambiguity that were identified in our work with Department of Administration. So it actually merges those paragraphs together. But because this bill is still in process as well as the other one being in process, the reviser couldn't draft to the newly merged language. And because the first issue is a more substantive policy question and this one was purely technical, the request was that we have these two travel separately.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, that's clear. So in 2001, the underlined language that would be, I suppose, the new paragraph A. I get Representative Cantrell, where do you plan to fix this? Where is this going to be straightened out
Representative Cantrell.
between the two bills?
Thank you,
Can't do
Mr.
it
Chair.
Ways and Means.
Representative Cantrell, could you answer that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Fabian. I'm going to defer to Mr. Butel to add a little bit of clarification. That is, he was present earlier today for the hearing on that earlier bill, and he might be able to shed some light on this.
Thank you,
Butel.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Fabian. My understanding in working with the reviser and drafting these two is they felt that if both of these were to pass, they would be able to make them consistent if these were both to pass as separate bills. So that is my understanding. Thank you.
I could tell you're as clear as I am, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Aye.
Representative Fabian. Mr. Butel. Representative Detmer.
Just a question, why not just come with one bill
Yeah.
to this committee? Thank you, Mr.
Representative
Chair.
Cantrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Detmer. To iterate what Mr. Butel has said, it is my understanding that the reviser would rather draft from the current language and statute, the language that is being changed with this Bill 2001, and then reconcile the two later on in the process. That's my understanding of how these two pieces of legislation interact.
And Mr. Chair and Representative, when will it be reconciled?
Representative Detmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When will it be reconciled?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Cantrell, please.
Thank you, Representative Detmer. To iterate what Mr. Butel said, should both pieces of legislation pass this legislature, it is at that point in time that the reviser feels as though it's the Office of the Reviser will be able to reconcile the language in both of the bills. As Mr. Butel indicated, the contents of House File is a 2000 is more substantive, whereas the technical change, reconciling the technical change with the substantive change made in House File 2000, it is my understanding will be fairly seamless.
And Mr. Chair,
Representative Detmer.
just to follow up here, but it still has to come back to a committee for the legislature to pass it. Am I correct there? To put it in law, the legislature has to put it in law.
Mr. Representative Detmer, if I may handle that one, Department of Human Rights is in, wait a second, the Department of Human Rights is in Judiciary Committee. That's where this is going next, according to the path. Judiciary Civil Law Committee is also a policy committee. So. That's the future of this.
But
Representative Fabian.
excuse me, Mr. Chair, House File 2000 went to Ways and Means. This is going to, I believe you said Judiciary?
Committee Administrator will clarify that for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. Because we're a policy committee, when we refer things to divisions of Ways and Means, we have to send it to Ways and Means. There is no official way in the committee report process to include a recommendation. We made that mistake earlier this session. So we are sending both of these to Ways and Means, at which time they will then be memoed to the Judiciary and Civil Law Division, in which that's the department, or that's where the jurisdiction is for the Department of Human Rights. That is the path for these two bills, but they were both sent. The other bill we sent was a different one that was sent directly to Judiciary and Civil Law, because that one is going to travel on its own separately.
Representative Fabian.
Note to the
response?
legislature, let's combine these into one bill in the future.
Thank you, Representative Fabian. Let's blame it on the reviser. They're not here.
Oh,
So.
I didn't say that.
Any questions to the author or the testifier? Hearing none, anyone in the audience that wishes to weigh in? Thank you very much. Final words, Representative Cantrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members of the committee, for your time this evening. I hope that you're able to get out of here at a reasonable hour.
Okay. I'm going to re-refer the 2001 to the, as amended, to the Ways and Means Committee. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, you're on your way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next, we have House File 2274. Representative Claflin. Claflin. He said Claflin, you said Claflin. Let's get some clarity on this. Representative Claflin. I'll make a motion to refer House File 2274 to Ways and Means.
Thank you, Chair. I have sat here and clarified the pronunciation of my last name a number of times. It is Representative Claflin, derivative of McLaughlin, if you really want to get into the history of it. I am bringing House File 2274 to you tonight because I am a member of the labor movement, and I strongly believe that we do not leave people behind. The Fair Labor Standards Act restricts the minimum wage and the hours worked, other workplace requirements. And in Minnesota, we have workers who are exempted from the Fair Labor Standards Act. There are about 39,000 workers in the state who do not earn overtime pay after reaching 40 hours in a work week. They have to reach 48 hours before they begin to earn overtime pay. And we are the only state in the country that has that limit at 48 hours. Kansas has a limit at 46 hours where you begin to earn overtime, and every other state in the nation begins to pay overtime at 40 hours. Excuse me. There are about 20,000 workers within the movie theater companies, vehicle mechanics, seasonal amusement employees, and other smaller categories of workers. And about 19,000 of those employees are agricultural workers. The average pay for those employees ranges between $10 and $18 an hour. In your packets, there's also a handout that has all of the other states with their overtime hours listed. And you'll see that not only do other states all have the 40-hour limit before you begin to earn overtime, there are even states that will begin to pay overtime when you've worked more than 8 hours in a day, or when you work over 7 consecutive days. It is frankly time to bring our labor standards up to the same standards as the rest of the country. I have with me today Brad Lato from the AFL-CIO, who will also testify in support of this bill.
Welcome, Mr. Leto. Please identify yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and labor members for the second time today. I am Brad Leto, Secretary Treasurer of the Minnesota AFL-CIO, and here to testify in support of House File 2274, moving Minnesota in line with 48 other states by paying overtime after 40 hours. The bill is very straightforward. The House Research Summary from Mr. Weeks says it all. House File 2274 changes the number, quote, changes the number of hours in a week over which overtime is required to be paid from 48 to 40. This change would make the number of hours the same in the Minnesota Fair Labor Standards Act under Minnesota Statutes Chapter 177, the same as in the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. Now, some may ask, why does the Minnesota AFL-CIO care about this issue? Don't unions have contracts that provide overtime after 48 hours of work? Yes, this is true. But the first sentence of the Minnesota AFL-CIO mission statement says, our goal is to improve the lives of working families, to bring economic justice to the workplace and social justice to our state and nation. Adopting a 40-hour work week certainly will improve the lives of almost 40,000 workers in the state. And people understand this. Just today, I went down in the elevator with a few ordinary people I did not know. They were inquisitive and asked, why was I here at the Capitol? I said, I work for the Minnesota AFL-CIO, labor unions, and am here to advocate for a 40-hour work week for all. They were confused. And one woman said, you mean Minnesota does not have a 40-hour work week? I explained that federal law requires a 40-hour work week, but states had 40-hour weeks to cover workers exempt from federal law. Then I said Minnesota is the only state that still had a 48-hour work week. Her comment said it all. She said, well, that is really archaic. I wish you the best of luck getting this passed this session. Regular people understand this issue. It is not hard to explain to people. The time to move Minnesota to a 40-hour work week is this year. Please vote yes to move House File 2274 forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leto. Are there other testifiers? Please be seated, identify yourself, and proceed.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, Representative Claflin. I'm Bruce Miller with the Minnesota Farmers Union. The issue we have with this particular bill is seeking some redress and some relief for Minnesota's farmers who grow perishable fruits and vegetables and who employ foreign guest workers. I'm going to just briefly tell you about the foreign guest worker program and then come back to my ask of the committee. First of all, in Minnesota, we have up to 150 farms who employ about 2,000 foreign guest workers on their farms. They pay them $13.54 per hour. They pay them, there is no deduction for federal, state, or local taxes. So $13.54 without federal, state, or local taxes. These farmers, these employees come from all over the world. Many of them right now from Mexico, Central America, but also come from as far away as South Africa and from Eastern Europe. The farmers who employ these by contract, this is a federal program, by contract provide the legal and visa costs, the recruiting agent costs in their home countries, the travel costs, the per diem travel expenses. They provide government-inspected housing on their farms. They provide workers' comp insurance. They provide vehicles and fuel so people can get food and clothing. They provide specialty clothing and tools such as boots, rain gear, which today makes sense, and other tools. They are paid at least every other week. The wages are, again, as I said, free of federal and state and local taxes. Our Minnesota farmers are at an economic disadvantage, these up to 150 farmers, because the people they are employing are foreign guest workers under a program called the H-2A program. Our farmers are looking at not being competitive with our surrounding states who do not have the kind of overtime, agricultural overtime hours that Minnesota does. In Minnesota, these farmers pay overtime at 48 hours and above. This would drop that down, and there would be a significant cost increase to them compared to other states. Right now, what I understand is that in the grocery stores, produce is now coming in from Michigan because it can be grown more cost effectively there because of their hour situation, and they can ship it here and still beat the farmers who are growing in Burnsville or in Wright County or in other parts. This affects produce growers. It affects apple growers. These are perishable products. The foreign guest workers that come here aren't coming here, and none of them are seeking citizenship. And this isn't about immigration, and it isn't about a wall. This is about people who are coming here to earn a living, to earn as much money as they can, to send it home to wherever home is, and after 6 to 9 months, go home with that kind of with the kind of money they simply can't get, and their economic and their family's economic conditions are greatly improved. So I'm here tonight not to argue about 48 and 40, but I'm here to say that Minnesota's family farmers who do produce need some relief and some redress. This legislation, frankly, at a time of pretty dramatic economic downturn, you may have heard the phrase being used, we're in year 5 of a 3-year downturn in farming. This one farmer last night, when he called me at home to talk to me about this bill, said this would be the equivalent of a barn collapse on my business. I think this is serious, and we hope, and I thank Representative Claflin for bringing it forward, that this provides us with an opportunity to have this kind of a dialogue ongoing in terms of can we fix this for this set of farmers who are using foreign guest workers? Can we, as is in the law now for resort owners who also bring in foreign guest workers, can we create an exception? Can we craft something? We didn't ask anyone on this committee tonight to think about an amendment that would do that, but I would posture that I would suggest that as we go forward, can we take a look at that? Can we have this dialogue? And secondly, I want to put forward an offer that the farmers I work with are seriously making. This summer, they would like you to come out on their farms. They would like you to see what it is they're doing. They would like you to meet their workers. And when I say meet their workers, they're not standing over them. They say, go talk to them. And they tell their employees, be as honest as you can. And so we want you to see these farms. We want you to see the kind of economic opportunities that are being impacted here. Minnesota Farmers Union supports legislative efforts as policy. Our policy, what our members have voted on, is we support legislative efforts to remove the overtime requirement for seasonal H-2A foreign guest workers employed in the growing of perishable farm products. As long as those visa holders are receiving the payment for the adverse wage rate for all employees, are provided housing and local transportation, as well as the payment of transportation costs to and from their country of origin. And finally, guaranteed compensation equal to 3/4 of the total work days of the contracted period. These are farmers who treat their employees well. These are not farmers who are abusing their employees, and this is the kind of legislation that they feel would be disastrous. And just for me, one final thing, I know these farmers. Many of them live right very near the metropolitan area as to how they get they're in the surrounding counties. And I have to say, some of these folks would like to pass on their farms to the next generation, and they would like to help younger farmers get started, but they're also in highly developable property, thousands of acres being now under produce that's being perishable, fruit and vegetables, and we would just soon farmers be successful and not be forced out of business or forced into dire consequences. Mr. Chairman, committee members, I thank you. Representative Claflin, look forward to talking about this more as this proceeds forward to wherever it goes. I might add that I think I heard you said it was going to jobs. Because of its impact on agriculture, I would also suggest that you consider, or that the legislature consider having it reviewed by the Agriculture Committee, and maybe bring in the Department of Agriculture to ask the Department of Agriculture their perspective on that. So, Mr. Chairman, I rest, and if you have got any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Very good suggestions. Questions to the testifier or the author? Representative Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to the testifier, curious, do you have any estimate of all of those different costs, what that might go into as far as an hourly overall payment?
Mr. Chairman, Representative.
Mr. Miller.
If you were one of these foreign guest workers, you would be paid $13.54 per hour. That is your rate of pay, and nothing's taken out of it. Is that answer? I'm not sure I understood the question. If not,
Representative Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess what I was looking at is all of the other costs that were with the housing and everything else. It sounds like there is a significant amount that if you looked at it from an hourly basis, if anybody's calculated that out to see what they're really paid.
Mr. Chairman, Representative.
Mr. Miller.
I must attest that is the one sheet of paper that's still lying on my dining room table because I wrote it down last night when I got home from over here about 9 o'clock. I can tell you that it's far in excess of $20 an hour, probably approaches almost double the cost of the actual wage rate. So when you add in housing, auto, travel, you're looking at thousands and thousands of dollars per employee. So beyond that, I will try to get you the information, though.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was my suspicion, that it could easily be double. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Vogel. I would like everybody to take notice that we have snacks, compliments of the Speaker Hartman, and thank you very much. Any other questions? Representative Jean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Claflin. I just had a quick question on line 1.10 to line 1.12, the line that states the state of Minnesota over a political subdivision may grant time off at the rate of 1.5 hours for each hour worked in excess of 40 hours in a week in lieu of monetary compensation. I was wondering why 48 and not 40. I'm not familiar with this process, so can you share with me why 48 and not 40 hours? If we're going to be changing to 40 hours everywhere else.
To the author.
Chair and Representative Zhang, that's a very good question. I had not noticed that, and I think that will be part of the ongoing conversation that we have. Thank you very much for pointing that out.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, to that point, it looks like maybe that's a carve-out for government and not for private employers. Representative Claflin, you said, I think in your opening comments, I wrote it down here, I actually have two different numbers. I think you said 30,000 employees were not covered by the FLSA. Can you rename those for me again?
Representative Claflin.
I got agriculture.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Representative Fabian, the total estimate from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and Department of Economic Development is about 39,000 total. About 19,000 are within the agricultural codes. About 20,000 come from other employment categories. About 2,500 work in movie theaters. About 6,300 are vehicle mechanics at dealerships. About 8,500 folks work in seasonal amusements and recreation. And a number of other small categories make up about 2,700 employees doing jobs like broadcast news editors and announcers in the non-metro area, domestic service providers who are living within homes, or employees who are receiving remedial training.
Thank you. Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm not sure I understand where this is coming from because, like in movie theaters, they're dealing in interstate commerce. They should, I mean, shouldn't the FLSA cover those employees? Why is that not, I mean, to me, it's obvious.
Representative Claflin.
Chair and Representative Fabian, yes, if a business does engage in interstate commerce, they are subject to the Fair Labor Standards Act. Not every movie theater, however, is engaged in business across multiple states. I think we would have to ask a labor lawyer for more details.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Mr. Chair, those must be the movies that they show in those theaters that are made just here in Minnesota then, because, anyway. And again, I appreciate what you're doing, what you're trying to do here, but as we heard from the other testifier, the ideology is good, but the reality, it doesn't work. You talked about coming out to the farms next summer. Well, I'll be there. I'll be driving tractor for one of my neighbors during planting season and so forth. But the 48 hours there in egg country during the busy times when we're planting and sugar beet harvest, any kind of harvesting that's going on, I don't see how this is going to work in the egg community. And farmers are really smart people. And if you put something like this on them, what they're going to do is take away from something else. It's not going to be something that they just absorb during this very, very difficult time in the ag economy. They may lower their hourly wage. You know, I know how much I made when I was driving beet topper last fall. And if by chance this were to be in effect in that the beet harvest time, instead of getting paid $20 or $25 an hour, they're going to get paid $15 or $20 an hour so that they can cover the overtime costs. So, and again, I appreciate, you know, the idea that you want people to be treated and paid more, but I just don't think that that this is going to work in ag country at this time. And it's more of a statement than a question, obviously, Mr. Chair. And I hope that we reconsider this and do something else. And one other question. Would the forestry industry be covered in this in any way? Loggers and so forth?
Representative Claflin.
Chair, I am not sure if the forestry industries would be exempt or non-exempt employees. I think that's another question for a labor lawyer. And further, I would welcome working more with the agricultural community. So this is a proposal that works for everyone in Minnesota. I think we have a solid piece of information to negotiate on, work forward with this information about the visa holders. And I also want to point out that the sugar beet employees that are employed as hand laborers and paid on a piece rate basis, if there's a certain level of pay there, they are also exempt from this limit.
Thank you. Representative Fabian.
Well, just one last question. So before this evening, Representative Claflin, what farmers have you talked to about this?
Representative Claflin.
I have not discussed this with farmers. I'm certain that it would affect their business. But I've done some basic math, and we hear over and over how tight everyone's margins are, and I believe everyone's margins are tight. For an employee who's making $15 an hour, if they're working 40 hours, they're paid $600. If they're working 48 hours at $15 an hour, they make $720. If they're going to be paid the overtime for the difference of those 8 hours between 40 and 48, it's a difference of $60. They would be making $780 for 48 hours of work instead of $720. $60 is a fairly small margin on what they're being paid.
Representative Fabian.
Two things, Mr. Chair. Well, First of all, if they're doing that in the egg sector, what's going to happen is they're not going to start at the 15. Oh, I apologize. If I was the chair, that would be a fine. So
How much you got?
I'll make sure that, I'll make sure that the next time we're at the Tin Cup together, I'll buy you supper. They're going to start out at a lower wage, so they're going to make the difference. And Mr. Chair, I'd ask for a roll call on this.
Thank you. Any other questions to the testifier or the author? Okay. Oh, Representative Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would request a roll call, but I do have a question or two. I'm curious, Representative, if there are any other extenuating circumstances for like these theater employees or mechanical employees and so forth, because it sounds as if it was kind of a carve-out for specific situations. Are you aware if that's going on with any of these other groups as well?
Representative Claflin.
Chair and Representative Vogel, I'm not sure what the reasoning behind those exemptions was. Again, a question for a labor lawyer, perhaps.
Representative Vogel.
Thank you. And just point of information, you know, it would appear to me that there's about 15 workers per farm. So if it's $80 a week extra and it's coming to $840 a week. Now, I don't know how long they work during the summer, but, you know, if they're working 10, 12 weeks or whatever, you're talking possibly thousands of dollars here on the overtime, even if it is only $80 a week. So I do think that it is worth exploring what's going on here, because that could be a significant financial impact on these people. So thank you.
Representative Fabian.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And I apologize, Farmers
No,
Union.
Bruce Miller,
Yeah, thank you.
Chairman.
So are any of the workers that come that you referred to, if they agree to work for a salary instead of an hourly wage, what would happen then?
Mr. Miller.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, this is kind of a, you know, it's kind of like we're looking at apples and strawberry trees or something, because this is federally dictated. There isn't the ability to do it by contract. This is a federal thing, and the wages are non-negotiable. These wages are set via the federal government. So when I'm saying it's that rate right now, that's calculated every year, and that has been ratcheting up per state each and every year as well. So, for instance, a vegetable farmer in Wright County can't say, well, overtime is busting me, I'm going to pay you $10 an hour, because he can't, because that's not a part of the agreement with the federal government and the the international exchange to bring these foreign guest workers here. It's a prescribed amount. And so what happens now is, what can happen is during peak harvest, planting harvest time, summertime, fall time, the farmers are finding themselves having to pay overtime to almost a point where they're not making any money on the per piece item that's being harvested, pumpkins, for instance. And so their option is to pay this overtime and not make any money, or to set these employees down, in this case now in Minnesota, at 48 hours. And now we have primarily young men sitting in a house on a Wednesday night or Thursday because their hours are in for the week. We feel like, and our farmers feel like, that's a recipe for trouble. And what these folks coming in is, when you come out and talk to them, you're going to find that they want to be out there and they want to work as many hours. They're not dissatisfied with their wages. They're not dissatisfied with their living conditions. They want to put as much money as they can in the bank, and they like their farmers, and they come back year after year. So I think that's one of the kind of controlling things. I think as we have this conversation, I think we have to be very clear that we need to, in some ways, separate out agricultural workers from the rest of this conversation, and maybe try to figure out how do we get to a reasonable working solution that benefits our farmers and benefits the people working, whether they're foreign guest workers or others. That was a long answer to your question.
But a good one. Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Representative Detmer.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I have the same concerns about the farm issues that we have here. I know in my area, there's several farms or greenhouses and vegetable farms. You know, a lot of their work is being done now where they're planting these seedlings in the greenhouses. And when it comes to the right weather, when we get rid of the snow, well, then they're out in the fields. So That's a concern that I have too with this legislation.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
Representative,
Miller.
foreign guest workers are already here in the United States. One of our farmers, the one that called me last night at 9 o'clock, 2 weeks ago in the middle of that snowstorm, was the night they flew in. So he was less than excited about having to go to the airport and get them. But they're in the greenhouses, you're right.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Any other questions for the testifier or the author? Oh, Representative Zhang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Claflin, thank you so much for bringing this bill forward. I think that as we discuss wage theft, we need legislation like this to address this ongoing issue, especially when we're talking about bills like this. We're talking about communities of color, communities, underserved communities who really need this so that we are addressing the issues that they are facing in the labor industry. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Any responses?
Yes, thank you, Chair and
Representative
Representative
Claflin.
Zhang. I do absolutely agree that this is time to have this conversation. And we can certainly have this conversation with awareness of the agricultural community and how they will be affected and how the employees within the agricultural community will be affected. And I also want to remind the rest of the committee that it is not only agricultural workers who will be affected by this. There are more than half of the employees in Minnesota that's estimated to be not covered by the 40-hour overtime limit, do not work in the agricultural fields. I would encourage the committee to continue to work with me on this bill to make it as strong as we can for all Minnesotans and for the folks that are coming here and helping us harvest the fresh fruits and vegetables that we all enjoy year-round.
I do have a question myself, if everyone else is through. Thank you. To whoever might answer this, maybe Mr. Leto would have input on this as well. Regarding the guest worker visas, we've got a list of these other states that has been provided, agricultural states, and I'm just wondering how many of those entertain workers on guest visas?
Mr. Chairman, there are foreign guest workers, I believe, in almost, if not all 50 states, probably all 50 states are near it. And I don't have the numbers per state, but I'm going to try to get them as we move this forward. This is a secondary problem at the federal level is because of the federal shutdown. The federal government is so far behind on processing visas that we have farmers all over America waiting for their foreign guest workers to actually arrive. And the other piece of that, and we can find this out because each and every one of those, foreign guest workers, I might add, has a contract. These are people with contracts who have an official contract with the farmer to do this work. So when we're talking about these workers and we're talking about possible exceptions, we are talking about people with contracts. And I think Representative Zhang knows how much I care about the same issues he does. And I just want to say that that's another whole kettle of something that we could discuss. So, but we will try to find that out, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Any other questions remaining? Representative Claflin, you'll get the last word.
Thank you very much, Chair Sundin. I'm looking forward to continuing to work on this bill. I do think this is very important to bring Minnesota up to the standards that the rest of the country follows. We're surrounded by other agricultural states. They have a 40-hour overtime standard. We can do the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to renew my motion to refer House File 2274 to the Ways and Means. All in favor, say aye.
Roll call.
Oh, excuse me, roll call. Sorry. And Andy Jurgensen will call the roll.
Representative Sundin.
I be an aye.
Representative Vogel. Representative Claflin,
Yes.
Representative Detmer,
No.
Representative Eklund,
Yes.
Representative Fabian,
No, I'm sorry.
Representative Hornstein,
Yes.
Representative Purcell,
Aye.
Representative Jean.
Yes.
The motion passes 6-3. We are adjourned.